Howdy there, folks. Wanted to just share a little good news with you guys. I do, unfortunately, have some bad news as well. Okay, you got to be equal as all things are in life. Like little good news, little bad news. A bunch of different stuff I was just looking at, and this absolutely affects many stocks many of you guys might own, you might think about owning in a pretty significant way on several different fronts. And so I thought I would just bring this to your guys' attention. I didn't want to make a full-scale video on this for the main channel, so I thought I would just kind of react to all these different posts and different images and things like that I want to show you guys in this video. So I thought I'd just throw this on the reaction channel. So appreciate everybody joining me. As always, 25,300 plus subscribers strong now. Thanks to everybody that's here, and I'm glad you guys enjoy the channel. I enjoy doing this channel a lot, okay? So first thing we're looking at here, global container freight rates. The cost of a 40-foot container are now lower than they were in February of 2020. February 7th, 2020, $1,468. That was obviously pre-Rona, right? This was at the peak $11,000 plus for a flip and flapjack and container. That's insanely ridiculous. Like, what happened there is it's mind-blowing, literally mind-blowing, okay? And now, at this point in time, we are back to below, actually, pre-Rona, okay? And we're down almost 90% from the peak. There was a lot of bubbles that happened, obviously, in 2021, in crypto, in stocks, in just about every single thing out there, okay? But I can tell you, nothing was as crazy of a bubble. Even AMC stock wasn't this crazy, okay? This was the craziest bubble of them all, in my opinion, was flip and flapjack and container costs going to $11,000 plus. Like, this is ridiculous, okay? That should never happen, but it happened nonetheless, okay? So this is a view of the actual chart here, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So if you own any company, any company that has to ship anything overseas, this is the best news you could possibly get, okay? Because these companies got screwed over in the worst way in the end of 2021, but specifically 2022, because a lot of you had priced in contracts at the end of 2021 at these insane rates, okay? And so basically every single company that had to ship anything overseas in 2022 got absolutely screwed in the worst way. This hurt these companies' margins in a massive way. It killed their profitability. A stock I'm thinking of right now that I personally own that is going to be extremely positively affected by this. The first stock I thought of, and there's several of them, but the first stock I thought of is Corsair Gaming, CRSR, okay? Obviously, they ship stuff all over the world. Almost most of their products are made in Asia, okay? And then they have to ship that over the United States or ship it to Europe or wherever, okay? And they got absolutely wrecked by having to ship all these different products to theirs, all these different components, and having to pay those sorts of prices, right? But I can tell you, if you make anything in, let's say, Asia, for example, China in general, right, and you got to ship it over the States or anything like that, those companies, everybody's margins got hit significantly. And so this is just one of many reasons why I actually believe margins are going to go up considerably for so many companies out there. I mean, we're not talking about, this wasn't a small change like, oh, container rate went from $1,400 to $2,000 or $1,900. We're talking it went to over $10,000, okay? We're talking about, nearly a 10x in the price. Like, can't even fathom those sorts of numbers. That never happens, okay? So this is very meaningful. If you own any company, like I said, that is in relation to that, this matters. This next one matters in a significant way. There's a producer price index by industry. General freight trucking, okay, long distance truckloads has started to come down significantly. It peaked actually in early 2022/mid 2022, and it's been coming down, and it's showing honestly no signs of bottoming. Like, I don't know where this baby bottoms out at, but it's showing as of right now. I mean, the chart is pretty self-explanatory. It's not showing any signs of bottoming. I wouldn't be surprised if we move back to the 160, 150 range. I don't know if we're going all the way back to 130, 140. It's a possibility, but I'm pretty confident we're going back to 150, 160 here in regards to this. So if you own any companies that have to truck product around, physical products, okay? For people that own just software companies, something like that, this doesn't really matter for you. But for anybody that owns anybody that has to send product around, okay, physical product, this is meaningful to you. This matters in a significant way. Recently, what's going on here? Well, this is just your traditional, I guess you can say a semi truck with a, traditional, let's call it, back end to it. How do we refer to this? Okay. Non-refrigerated, non-flatbed, just your traditional semi. Okay. With one of these trailers on it, let's just call it. Okay. A box trailer. Is that the right word for it? Right. If you see the pricing, I mean, once again, and this isn't just started like this. The pricing's been going down and it's continuing to go down. And once again, it's showing no signs of a bottom as of right now. Okay. If we look at flatbed, that's the one that's been consistent is flatbed. I wouldn't be surprised at all if flatbed starts to fall in the back half of this year, especially if construction continues to slow in a meaningful way in the back half of this year. Okay. Refrigerated continues to fall here. That's great news. If you own any companies that have to send stuff around the United States, that let's call it a food company, and it's refrigerated food, freezer food, whatever, good sign, okay? Good sign out there. Now, if we look at year over year, right, this is van spot rates down 28% year over year here. If we look at flatbed in general, down about 20% roughly year over year here. And if we look at refrigerated, we're down about 17.5% year over year as of right now. Okay. So once again, anybody that has to transport physical products around, great news, great news, great news. Okay. Next up here, if you haven't seen this, this matters in a significant way. Basically, trucking companies are starting to go bankrupt. And I don't think this is the end. I think it's we're still early innings in this. I think you're going to see a lot of trucking companies, unfortunately, go under over the next 6 to 12 months. A lot of these trucking companies have been barely scraping by for the past 3 to 6 months. They've been clinging on, and basically a lot of them are over leveraged now. A lot of them bought a lot of trucks, and obviously when you see what's happened with rates, it is just continue to go down and down and down. A lot of these trucking companies aren't going to make it, okay? And so what you're going to see is massive amounts of trucking companies go under. You're going to see a lot of jobs in the trucking industry lost over this next 6 to 12 months, okay? And this is meaningful in a few ways, okay? It's going to cause a dislocation, obviously, in the market. But this is something that happens in every single boom and bust cycle. So don't think this is some freakish event. This happens all the time. Basically, trucking will get hot at a particular time if the economy is doing very, very well, right? And what happens is a lot of usually more inexperienced folks get into the trucking industry, start buying multiple trucks, hiring folks, get over leveraged. They think it's going to last forever. And this is a very commoditized industry. And so unfortunately, next thing you know, it's a bust cycle's right around the corner. It's like the boom cycle's there, and then a year or two later, you're on a bust cycle. And next thing you know, if you're over leveraged, you're going under here. And you got to understand, like, people got to make it, right? And so what happens is a lot of the trucking folks, they take any price, basically, just to take a load anywhere, right? As long as it's somewhat of a profit, because at the end of the day, it's dog-eat-dog world, right? If you don't lower your price to take that load over here, then somebody's going to come in and beat you, and you're not going to get that money, and you need that money, right? Because you're probably clinging on and barely making it. So that's the problem with the trucking industry, is it goes through these boom and bust cycles, and unfortunately, it always takes folks under in these situations, and that's something we're starting to see. And like I said, you're going to see a lot more of these stories over this next 6 to 12 months. I can tell you that much, okay? Now, Embark Trucks. I don't know if you guys saw this. The autonomous trucking company that went public in 2021 via a SPAC. Oh, gosh, the SPACs, okay? Oh, man. It's cutting 70% of its workforce, and it's shutting down 2 offices right now. And the pain may not be over, as CEO Alex Rodriguez noted in an email to employees that the remaining 30% of workers will focus on winding down operations. The company said in a regulatory filing that about 230 employees were laid off on Friday. So unfortunately, it looks like these guys are going under as well. And this is just what you're going to see play out in the trucking industry, like I said, over the next 6 to 12 months. And what's going to emerge is the big dogs, the biggest trucking companies will make it through. They'll make it to the other side, as they always do. And they'll become bigger, and they'll prosper even more on the next big upcycle. And, it's almost like a natural evolution of the business cycle. And this happens in every industry, and it happens in trucking. And so the bigs get bigger. The Swifts and the Knights and all those guys, they all get bigger in one of these situations. Bigger and bigger, more dominant. And then you'll have another boom cycle. I don't know if it's 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, you have another boom cycle, right? You're going to have a bunch of operators buy a bunch of trucks, then go out of business, go bankrupt. Those trucks will be sold for likely significantly, and I mean significantly cheaper prices than what they're really worth, because at the end of the day, whoever takes possession of that wants to just get rid of it, right? They need to get rid of it. So they sell it for a very cheap price. And many times it can even be the big guys end up coming in, scooping up a truck that's in great condition, that doesn't have many miles on it, for a very cheap price, right? And on top of that, if you're talking about the trucking environment in a tougher space, we know, what did you hear 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Not enough truckers, right? Not enough people to hire, and you had to pay some crazy wages and get these crazy bonuses just to get people through the door. Well, that's all ending now at this point in time here in 2023. It started in 2022, but it's really ending in 2023. So what's going to emerge here is ultimately these trucking companies are going to have their way with employees, because people are going to need jobs. Trucking's, you make good money being a trucker. You do, right? And if people need money, they're gonna go the trucking route. A lot of times these companies will pay for you to get your commercial driver's license as well, and so that's what's going to end up playing out. By the way, there's definitely a decent amount of truckers that watch my channel, so I appreciate y'all. I know some of you guys listen to the videos while you're driving and whatnot. I've known several of you guys over the years, and so you guys know how this game goes. You guys that are in this industry, you know how this game goes, and we're just going through another one of those cycles, and then we'll bottom out. And next thing you know, we'll start slowly emerging, and then you'll have a blow off the top cycle like every industry, and the bigs get bigger. No different than you've seen it playing out in the banking industry. Look at the big banks right now, right? Next up here, look at this. This is definitely worrisome, troubling information here, okay? I saw this, Nick posted this. Americans can't afford their mortgages. Debt-to-income ratio on FHA mortgages hit 44% in 2022, the highest percent ever, even higher than 2007-2008 bubble. Lots of defaults, foreclosures coming in, low-income homeowners, right? And once again, a self-explanatory chart. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to look at this and be like, oh, debt to income's a little high here, okay? Definitely a little high, and it's never good when you see a debt to income higher than we saw, obviously, prior to the great financial crisis. Now, the important thing to understand about this chart is this is only an issue if people lose jobs, okay? The reason the housing bust was so vicious wasn't just because people were in variable rate mortgages and those sorts of things. The reason we had such an incredible bust, and it wasn't just because some people bought too many homes and whatnot, it was because we had unemployment rate go to roughly 10% or so, okay? And that, by the way, a lot of people believe that unemployment rate was actually way higher than 10%, but I'm not going to get into that argument here today, okay, in the great financial crisis. But nonetheless, let's call it what it is. Massive amounts of people lost jobs. Incomes went way down for people that did have jobs, many of them, right? I have a friend, he said he was making $100K plus a year. Prior to that, next thing you know, he was making $55, $60K a year for the company he was working at, right? That's what happens in a vicious recession. And so this is one of those things you look at, and it's like, if we had a scenario where unemployment goes to 8 to 10%, I can tell you we're going to have a massive housing bust again in the United States of America. I'm talking way worse than what we've had. We've had a little decline in some markets and pricing. If you're talking about 8 to 10% unemployment rate, you're going to have a real crash. I'm talking about markets, from 2021 numbers to what they could be in 2024, I'm talking 50% down, 40% down type numbers, okay? I'm already seeing significant drops in Arizona and Vegas, way more than the data is showing. I always see these numbers, and I see this stuff way before the government sees it. The government will eventually get around to this. I saw the inflation way before the government saw it, right? And this is the same exact thing I'm seeing housing. Housing's way weaker, and I can tell you prices are dropping way faster than what the media is telling you and what the government numbers are showing. I'm just telling you guys, okay? And it's already a bad situation, but it would get far worse if we saw unemployment go up in a massive, massive way, okay? Which could normalize the real estate market. It might not be the worst thing in the world, okay? So for right now, not an issue. If massive jobs are lost over the next 6 to 12 months for any reason, then we're talking about massive issue for housing, okay? Next up here. I don't know if you guys saw this. Meta Recruiter says she was paid $190,000 per year to do nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm not surprised, okay? I'll be honest, I'm not surprised. And the thing is, this wasn't just going on with Meta, this was going on with all the big tech companies, okay? All the big tech companies were just hoarding talent, hiring anybody who had a pulse and they thought had a decent amount of talent behind them, hiring anybody, okay? And people didn't know what roles they were going to do, and that's because, there was just like a battle for employees. And so everybody's like, I got to hire this, I got to hire in, and that's over now. Let's just call it what it is. It's over now, okay? And so ultimately, this will produce a much more healthy big tech, okay? In a much more healthy Silicon Valley area. And so everything I just took you guys through, okay? It's painful to go through this stuff short term, right? But I can tell you, this is all very healthy for the long term. It's going to be a much more healthy market. Will evolve as a much more healthy economy. It's going to be short-term pain, but it will set us up for a lot more long-term gain. Because all this crap that happened, container rates going to $11,000, trucking rates going to the sky high, okay? People making $190,000 to do nothing. None of that's healthy, folks, okay? It's all coming to an end, and it's short-term pain, but I can tell you it's for 5 to 10 years of long-term gain. What would you rather have? I appreciate everybody joining me as always. Much love. Thanks for being subscribed here. I appreciate y'all. Oh, I got a bunch of stuff in the description area if you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, anything like that. If you want to apply for my private stock group, private wealth group, it's all in the description area. If you want to support the channel and you enjoy the content I put out and keep you guys up to date with even videos like this, support us on Patreon. It's like $10 to support on there. Appreciate y'all and have a great day.